Before episode 9 provides only a small number of reveals, but the significant moments push the story toward its climactic ending. The Stephen King-approved thriller follows the supernatural connection between a child psychologist named Eli and his troubled patient named Noah. Critics have panned the series, but the viewers have a very divided response to the slow-paced show. Some viewers love the Billy Crystal psychological thriller, while others agree with the critics, expressing that the show is boring and redundant. After 9 episodes, the miniseries will finally come to an end next week. Noah and Eli are finally headed back to the farmhouse together as Noah's on the brink of death. The finale could be a make-or-break episode, either saving the show or cementing it as one of the worst Apple TV Plus original shows ever made. Either way, the events and reveals of before episode 9 will be essential to remember going into the finale. Eli is confined to the psychiatric ward. The hospital believes Eli's infection caused psychosis. Eli lays in a hospital bed in Apple TV Plus' before. The dramatic ending of before episode 8 shows Eli getting rushed into a psychiatric facility after having a breakdown at the farmhouse. Episode 9 explains what really happened during his hallucinations. He uncontrollably ripped open his hand using a pen. Eli had a break from reality where he couldn't hear or respond to Cleo. Because she struggled to handle the situation, Cleo contacted the police so they could assist her in getting Eli to the hospital for treatment. Because he's labeled a danger to himself, the hospital admits him on a 72-hour involuntary hold and places him in the same psychiatric ward to which he previously administered care. This is a particularly vulnerable position, as he's put through the same forced care and testing he previously participated in. Given his erratic behavior throughout the series, it's surprising it took 9 episodes to get to this point. Eli also has different expectations from reality. He thinks that he can use his charm, medical vocabulary, and position of power to manipulate the nurses on the ward. However, the medical professionals seem impervious to his influence. This shows their caliber as professionals. Ultimately, the involuntary detainment creates tension throughout before episode 9, increasing Eli's desperation to save Noah. It also contributes to the climactic episode ending, which sets up a dramatic finale. 5. Noah and Eli have the same abnormal symptoms. The duo both are freezing cold despite the hot weather. Noah, Jacoby dupe, with a fixed stare in before image via Apple TV+. Back in before episode 4, Eli's breath becomes visible and his lips turn blue just like Noah's had earlier. Eli also starts hallucinating the worm after Noah did a few episodes later, which is another odd connection between the two. This episode continues the trend of Noah and Eli exhibiting similar symptoms that a simple diagnosis can't explain away. Even transference countertransference, which is suggested multiple times, is a stretch. At the start of before episode 9, Eli is shivering, freezing cold, and his lips are blue. The medical professionals claim that the symptoms might come from Noah being arrhythmic. When Denise goes to visit Eli at the hospital, she finds him bundled up in a blanket, wearing a beanie, and shivering. She's shocked because the weather is sweltering hot, making it odd that they are both cold. At this point, Before has all but confirmed that Eli, Noah, and possibly Lynn existed together in a past life that involved them walking through a snowy and icy forest. It hasn't suggested another explanation for the supernatural occurrences, and it would be foolish for the show to introduce an alternate explanation in the final episode of the show. As such, the symptoms can be taken as a psychic imprint from the past life. 4. Eli finally explains the truth about Lynn's death. Eli killed Lynn Indiana the bathtub as an act of mercy. From the start, Before makes it abundantly clear that Eli harbors guilt for his wife's death. The big question spanning the miniseries is whether he feels guilt because he didn't prevent it or he feels guilt because he killed her. At the end of Before episode 3, Eli has a flash of him strangling Lynn. Because Eli is an unreliable narrator who experiences nightmares and hallucinations, it was easy to write off the visual. However, Before episode 9 reveals what truly happened to Lynn. The account he told the therapist was true. He did go out to the pool and get Asian food, only to come home to Lynn bleeding out in the bathtub. Eli conveniently left out the fact that Lynn wasn't dead when he came home. She was on the brink of death and reached out to him, begging him to help her die. In an act of violent mercy, he strangled her so that she could die on her own terms instead of continuing to fight a losing battle with terminal cancer. Later in Before episode 9, Barbara reveals that Lynn wanted to go through euthanasia over a year before her death, but Eli wouldn't support this. She even asks him why it took so long for him to help Lynn. This paints Eli in an entirely different way, making him seem less loving and more controlling. The question of whether he redeemed himself by helping Lynn is ultimately up to the viewer.